There's an old proverbial curse, sometimes ascribed to the Chinese, although I don't know if that's true, that says, "May you live in interesting times." Well, my dear faith family, we are living in interesting times. But that's why the two verses that you should have read by now, if you haven't, please pause and read them now, are two of my absolute favorite passages in all the Bible. So let's start with the Hebrew prophet Ezekiel. So in this very famous valley of the dry bones, we have this amazing encounter in which Ezekiel is in this valley that all that's known about it is that it was seen in some previous generation, this battle. The people there have been dead for so long that their bones, they've completely decomposed. The bones are dry. There's no sense of life, whatever. The dryness also ascribed to those who remembered the people that happened to die there. By now, the tears have even dried up. These are people that are truly and well gone as can be. And then let's compare and contrast that to the Gospel of John passage where Jesus' good friend Lazarus, one of the friends that we know about that's not one of his disciples, falls ill and then eventually dies. And John 11 gives us the shortest verse in all the Bible. John chapter 11, verse 35. It's only two words. Jesus wept, or Jesus cried, to use our thing, to show the love and the affection that he had for his dear friend Lazarus, who had been with him arguably since childhood. So why are these two passages a couple of my favorites? Well, especially as it pertains to now, as we talk about living in interesting times, it's the word time. So let's take a second and look at Ezekiel's Valley of the Dry Bones. So again, it's this desert, it's dry, these people are long gone, and then we have this amazing story of the bones clattering together and sinews coming back and life coming back into them. It kind of, it could sound a bit like a horror movie, but that's not the point of it. The point is that in this valley that has long been known as a valley just of death from the past, and nothing has lived there since, we now have this new breath of life. And even as the bodies stand up there, they remain unanimated. And so it's the breath of God that brings them back fully to life. Now, the story in the Gospel of John is a little bit different because Jesus actually specifically and intentionally takes time and doesn't go right to Lazarus when he's sick. And we have this great interaction with Lazarus' sister and Jesus, where she does show some faith and says, if you had been here, my brother would have been okay. And then we have Jesus' very famous line, one of his I am sayings from the Gospel of John. I am, of course, being a reference back when Moses goes up to the burning bush and asks for God, Jehovah's name, and he simply says, I am. Well, the Gospel of John does a bunch of these where Jesus says, I am, and then describes. And in this one, he says, I am the resurrection and the life. And he waits, and it's important, 4 days, because there was some Jewish traditions at the time that a person wasn't really dead, their spirit wasn't really gone until they'd been dead for 3 days. And you may be thinking, well, isn't that interesting, since Jesus was dead for 3 days? Yes, you're absolutely right. But Lazarus is done for 4 days. And so we get to see in Jesus calling Lazarus forth from the grave 4 days after he passed, the reference to the smell, the bad smell, to really show that Lazarus was truly dead. He was beginning to rot and decompose. He was in the early stage that, when we look at the Ezekiel passage, that's a stage that had been long gone. They were not smelling anymore. It was just dry and dust and brittle. But Lazarus is fresher even though he's gone, and he comes out. Now, this shows a bunch of different stuff, but as it pertains to our time right now, Jesus' power over death is displayed in his resurrection of Lazarus. Ezekiel's vision of the dry bones that show God's life can come back no matter what, where death has long since proclaimed a dominion, has profound impact on what we're going through today. Because again, this is about time. And what these stories show to us is that God is powerfully, wonderfully, majestically unimpacted by our concepts of time. Now, sometimes that can be problematic and frustrating because we want things to happen for us at a certain time, and we don't really understand when that doesn't happen. It can hurt our faith. We can feel like we're being punished or that our life didn't go the way we want it to. But as many of us have sort of circled around the sun, and many of you have circled around the sun more than other people and whatnot, I hope you've been given the gift to be able to look back and recognize time and again how many different ways in which not getting what you wanted at a certain time actually ended up being the blessing that you couldn't have seen. These are scary times, and I don't want us to move past that. I don't want to pat you on the back and tut you, but I want to remind you that we do serve a God who is over time. And everything that we're going to understand, every element of our faith and our understanding of this life is wrapped up in time, but that does not impact God. In a very real sense, when we call ourselves children of the kingdom, children of God, it's because we already exist in his kingdom, even if we can't fully understand what that means because we're in this part. You are already a child of God, which is why death actually has no real power over us. It's just a doorway we walk to get home. It's just a nap that we take. And I hope you are taking some naps in this time. I don't believe that this is going to be the big, scary death bringer that a lot of people are saying it is. And I don't want you to give in to fear. But I want us to acknowledge the fact that fear is a part of it. That moments like this really bring us face to face with the fact that life is fragile and it is short. And it's in those things that is also absolutely beautiful. But also recognize that scary times are just that, just times, just a way of understanding what is currently happening right now. For example, we're all together, worshiping on Sunday. But as I'm talking to you currently, it's Saturday. So time is kind of losing some sense of meaning. We're kind of living in this space where it's almost like Boxing Day to December 30th, where no one really knows what day it is because everything's kind of ground to a halt. All the ways we regiment time is they're starting to fall apart. So let's see that for the blessing that is. Let's see that for the rest that is. Let's see that for the truth that it is. That times is something we need in order to understand where we are, when we are, what it is that we're doing. Oh, at 9 o'clock, I have to go here. At 9:30 on Sunday morning, I have to go to church. Whenever Jamie shows up on Sunday morning, sometime after 11, I go to church for this amount of minutes, or this amount of moments. Well, all that's been taken away. But it changes our faith, but it doesn't lessen it. Look to the valley of the dry bones. Look to the resurrection of Lazarus to recognize that even death itself, even death long settled in the past, has no bearing on the plans of God. God is a life bringer. God is a healer. God is the resurrection and the life, irrespective of our understanding of how time functions and flows. Having said that, I'm looking forward to all this stuff being over, to gathering with you again physically in the same space, to giving hugs, handshakes, seeing how we interact with each other in real time. But in the interim, let's remember that we are still bound together through space and, of course, through time. For time, just like all of us, is a servant to our God. And our God, whom we call Abba, Dad, knows us and has called us to be beings in time, but never to forget that as his children, we are beings over time as well. God bless you in this time. Let's stay connected with each other through praying for one another and continue to either email me any prayer requests you have or just to call me, 905-467-7529. And I'd love to just chat with you or text or whatnot. I hope you're doing well. So stay calm, stay healthy, stay safe, and for the time being, stay home. I love you. This is Jamie signing out for now.